Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're your guides, and today we're digging into our research, our notes, everything we could find to bring you the most interesting bits.
Yeah, and today we're looking at a real public gem, as you call it, from cinema's golden age. The very lively 1963 Western comedy, McLintock.
That's the one. Now imagine a classic John Wayne Western. You've got the Duke, the landscapes.
Right. But with this, well, really surprising twist, it's actually loosely based on Shakespeare.
Shakespeare. In a Western.
Yep, The Taming of the Shrew. So you got John Wayne, Maureen O'Hara, gorgeous Technicolor, that super wide Panavision look, and naturally, a whole heap of slapstick comedy.
It sounds wild already. And this isn't just us looking back at a fun old movie, right? Our mission today is to really unpack the story behind McLintock.
Exactly. From, the creative ideas driving it, the plot itself, which is, well, it's something else,
Understatement.
and then how it ended up in the public domain. That journey is unique and makes it super accessible, but also kind of confusing for people trying to watch it today.
So what are the key things, the nuggets you really need to know about this movie and its, let's say, unusual legacy? Let's dive in.
Okay,
So let's unpack the start. McLintock wasn't just another Western off the studio lot.
no, not at all. It's produced by John Wayne's own company, Batjack Productions, and directed by Andrew V. McLaughlin, whose father, Victor McLaughlin, was a frequent co-star of Wayne's.
So connections there, but what's really interesting you mentioned is Wayne's personal creative vision for this film. He wasn't just an actor for hire here.
Absolutely not. This was very much his project. And what's fascinating is Wayne specifically pushed for this script because he wasn't happy with how Westerns often portrayed Native Americans.
Okay, so that was a conscious goal.
Definitely.
Yep.
And he also wanted to weave in his own thoughts on, well, marriage, marital squabbles, maybe pushing back against abuse, and even taking some shots at political corruption, regardless of party.
So a real departure from something like The Searchers, where John Ford was firmly in control.
Precisely. There, he had very little creative input. McLintock was different. It was also a deliberate move towards comedy, really leaning into the slapstick potential of a Western setting, which wasn't his usual big-budget style back then.
Right, more than just a paycheck. It felt like a statement piece for him. And it was quite literally a family affair, too, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. His son, Michael Wayne, was the full producer, and his younger son, Patrick Wayne, actually played Devlin Warren, the young male lead.
Wow. So it really raises that question, doesn't it? How much do a star's personal beliefs, their convictions, actually shape the movies they make, especially when they get that level of control?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
And here, Wayne absolutely used that control. He pushed against genre conventions. He tackled social issues, albeit through comedy. It's a pivotal film in his career.
Yeah.
The film scholar Emmanuel Levy points this out.
What did Levy say?
He called it the beginning of Wayne's attempt to impose his general views, not just political ones, on his pictures. So he was really starting to inject his own philosophy into his work.
Interesting. Not just acting, but sort of shaping the message. Now, what about the actual making of the film? Any fun details from the set?
Well, they filmed in some beautiful spots like Old Tucson Studios, the Santa Fe Ranch House, really making the most of that wide Panavision screen.
Yeah, giving it that epic Western feel.
Exactly. But for viewers who really look closely, there's a little historical slip-up.
Oh, like what?
You can actually spot the Arizona flag in the movie.
Okay, so.
Well, the film's set in 1895. The Arizona flag wasn't even designed until 1917.
A little detail most people would miss, I bet.
Probably. And speaking of details, Maureen O'Hara apparently had quite the experience with that famous spanking scene.
The one with Wayne, what did she say?
She reportedly said, and I quote, "He really spanked me. My bottom was black and blue for weeks."
Ouch. Sounds like they really went for the physical comedy there.
They definitely committed. And one more for the diehard Wayne fans. Keep an eye out for his favorite belt buckle, the Red River D-buckle.
From the movie Red River.
That's the one. It shows up pretty clearly in a couple of scenes, a little personal touch for the Duke.
Okay, so from Wayne's vision and these behind-the-scenes bits, let's jump into the plot itself, because it is, as advertised, pretty wild.
Oh, it is. You've got this amazing cast: Maureen O'Hara, Stephanie Powers, Yvonne DiCarlo, Chill Wills.
A great lineup.
And the story just goes for it. It's 1895. We follow George Washington McLintock, or GW, big cattle baron. The town's basically named after him. He lives on his ranch, Mesa Verde.
Now, things aren't exactly peaceful at home, right?
Not quite. His wife, Catherine, played by O'Hara, of course, walked out on him 2 years earlier. No real explanation given at first. And their daughter, Becky, is off at college back east.
So it connects back to that taming of the shrew idea, the domestic battle.
Absolutely. It weaves the Western stuff, GW being respected, but clashing with bureaucrats like Matt Douglas and this slippery Indian agent named Agard, while also being friends with the local Comanche. It weaves all that with these big comedic fights between GW and Catherine.
Okay, so the movie kicks off. GW's dealing with homesteaders trying to farm unsuitable land.
Right, he warns them off. Then he ends up hiring Devlin Warren, played by Patrick Wayne.
His son.
Yep, Devlin kind of has to beg for the job, pushed into it by this older drifter named Bunny. And GW also hires Dev's mom, Mrs. Warren, played by Yvonne DiCarlo, mainly after tasting her amazing cooking.
Classic setup, but then Catherine comes back.
She does. She wants a divorce, but somehow ends up just moving back onto the ranch, which immediately sparks friction, especially between her and Mrs. Warren.
The battle lines are drawn.
Pretty much. Catherine is constantly trying to get under GW's skin. It gets worse when Becky, their daughter, returns from college with this fellow named Junior Douglas.
Related to the bureaucrat GW dislikes.
The very same. GW takes an instant dislike to Junior naturally. And this whole setup leads to some of the film's most, well, memorable and maybe slightly debated scenes.
Okay, so where does the real chaos start? You mentioned a brawl.
Well, yeah. So the Comanche, led by Running Buffalo, come to town because their chiefs are supposed to be released and arrive on a train. Sheriff Lord lets them camp near the homesteaders, which Douglas objects to.
Tensions rising.
Exactly. Then a homesteader's daughter runs off with a boy, but Douglas and the others immediately jump to conclusions and assume the Comanche kidnapped her. They try to lynch Running Buffalo right there.
Wow, okay. Classic Western misunderstanding escalating fast.
Totally. And it reflects that prejudice Wayne seemingly wanted to critique. GW and his ranch hands try to calm things down, but it just explodes into this huge, muddy, free-for-all brawl in the middle of town.
And Catherine gets involved?
Surprisingly, yes. She jumps right in, siding with GW, throwing punches. It's actually pretty funny and shows there's still some kind of connection, some fire between them, despite everything.
Okay, so that's the big public chaos. What about the personal stuff? Becky's back home.
Right. There's a welcome home party for Becky. Devlin Warren gets into a fistfight defending a friend, shows he's got boxing skills. But then Becky and Junior deliberately provoke him.
How so?
They kind of mock him, look down on him. So Dev insults Becky back. This makes GW mad. But instead of hitting Dev, he pulls out a starter's pistol and fires blanks at him, pretending to shoot him, mostly to scare Becky straight.
Okay, that's unusual parenting.
Well, Devlin doesn't take kindly to being shot at, even with blanks. So in retaliation, he grabs Becky and spanks her with a coal shovel.
With a shovel, Catherine must have lost it.
Oh, she was furious. And this whole sequence really brings up that core element people talk about with McLintock.
Oh, yeah.
The slapstick violence, the spankings, played for laughs.
Yeah, it definitely reads differently today.
It does. The critic Bosley Crowther called it lusty farce back then,
Right.
which kind of captures that tone. But it's not all farce. The film does touch on serious things, too.
Like the Comanche situation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a hearing where GW passionately defends his blood brother, Chief Puma, against unfair policies pushed by Governor Humphrey. But the governor ignores him, orders the Comanche chiefs to be imprisoned anyway.
So GW's efforts fail there.
They do. And he gets really drunk afterwards, kind of despairing. He ends up muttering to Bunny, that drifter, that maybe if the Comanche just went out fighting like they wanted, the government would finally realize how badly Humphrey was handling things.
Planting a dangerous idea there, perhaps.
Perhaps. It's a subtle critique of the bureaucracy, though. So you've got all this, the spats, the brawls, the politics, building up to the big climax at the 4th of July celebrations.
Okay, set the scene. What happens?
Well, first, Mrs. Warren drops a bombshell. She's quitting as GW's cook because Sheriff Lord asked her to marry him.
So that clears up Catherine's suspicion about GW and Mrs. Warren.
Finally, yes. But then, remember Bunny and GW's drunken suggestion. Bunny seems to have taken it to heart. He gets rifles to the imprisoned Comanche, helps them break free. They stage this wild raid through town, grab their chiefs, and ride off with the cavalry chasing them.
Total chaos.
Pure pandemonium. And right in the middle of it all, hiding in a haystack, Dev and Becky make up and get engaged.
Of course they do. It fits the tone.
It really does. So, seeing this, maybe feeling inspired, GW takes advice from Jake Birnbaum, the store owner. He confronts Catherine, finally gets her to admit why she left. She found lipstick on his shirt years ago and assumed the worst.
A misunderstanding all along.
Seems so. DW then chases her through the chaos of the town.
Oh no, not another.
Yep. He catches her, publicly spanks her with another coal shovel.
Wow.
Tells her she's free now, she can have her divorce. But in true Taming of the Shrew style, she just follows him home. They walk up the steps to the ranch house together, reconciled.
What a ride. It really does blend that broad comedy, the action, and those little hints of social commentary Wayne wanted.
Absolutely. It's like they threw every possible ingredient into the mix. Western action, Shakespearean farce, family drama, political jabs. It's that controlled chaos, I think, that makes it so memorable, even if some parts are, well, products of their time.
Definitely a unique film in his career. Now, beyond the story and the production, there's this whole other layer to McLintock that makes it perfect for our Public Gems deep dive.
Right. It's status in the public domain.
Exactly. For anyone listening who might not know, public domain basically means a creative work's copyright has expired or wasn't properly handled, so it's free for anyone to use, copy, distribute.
Without needing permission or paying royalties, yeah.
Yeah.
So what happened with McLintock? How did this big John Wayne movie end up there?
It's actually surprisingly straightforward, legally speaking, though the consequences are complicated.
Go on.
Basically, the copyright holder, Wayne's own Batjack Productions, just didn't renew the copyright registration when they were supposed to.
They just missed the deadline.
Seems so. Under U.S. copyright law back then, you had to renew in the 28th year after publication. They didn't. So in 1991, boom, the film fell into the public domain in the U.S. A court case in '94 officially confirmed it.
Wow. Just an administrative slip-up with huge consequences. But there's a catch, isn't there?
There is, and it's a really important one. While the film itself, the visual images became public domain, the music score, composed by Frank Duvall, did not. Its copyright remained intact.
Okay, so the pictures are free, but the music isn't. That definitely complicates things.
Hugely, and that's why if you've ever gone looking for McLintock online or on DVD, you find just tons of different versions.
Right, because anyone could release the film footage, but they couldn't legally use the original score without permission.
Exactly. Batjack Productions, which is now run by Wayne's estate, still owns the original film negatives and the rights to that music score, so they control the official, fully restored releases.
Which means they have the best source material and the proper music.
Correct. So for years, you had all these budget labels, like Good Times Home Video, remember them?
Wow.
Or
The cheap VHS tapes.
them and others putting out versions of McLintock, often sourced from really poor quality TV prints. And crucially, these versions either had a completely different generic musical score slapped on,
To avoid paying for the real one?
or they had a very muffled, low-quality version of the original score, maybe hoping nobody would notice or enforce the music copyright too strictly.
A real mixed bag for viewers.
Definitely. Then Batjack partnered with MPI Home Video in the mid-90s for the first sort of official home video release, trying to offer better quality.
An improvement, presumably.
Yeah, but the big step came in 2005. Paramount Home Entertainment made a deal with Batjack for a major restoration. They went back to the original camera negative, did a full remaster.
And it sounds like the one to get.
It was a huge leap. New 5.1 surround sound mix using the original score, plus amazing extras commentary tracks with critics like Leonard Maltin and even Maureen O'Hara, Stephanie Powers, Michael Wayne, Andrew McLaglen, the key players.
Wow, that's comprehensive. But then things got even more confusing with Blu-ray, right?
But they did, because in 2013, a company called Olive Films put out a Blu-ray.
Okay.
But their source was a 2K scan done by the Library of Congress, which they treated as public domain material. So, no Batjack involvement.
Meaning potentially not the best picture quality compared to the negative, and probably issues with the music again.
Likely, yes. It was essentially a high-definition version of a public domain print. But then, just a year later, in 2014, Paramount, working with Batjack, released their own Blu-ray.
The official one.
Right. This one boasted a brand new 4K remaster, again from the original camera negative. It included all those great bonus features from the Paramount DVD, generally considered the definitive version if you want the best picture and the correct sound.
So as a viewer, you really have to pay attention to which version you're watching because the quality can vary dramatically.
Absolutely. It's a perfect example of how public domain status isn't always simple. Now, putting the rights issues aside for a second, how was the film received initially?
Well, commercially, it was a big hit. It made about $14.5 million, which was great for Wayne, especially after his previous film, The Alamo, hadn't done so well financially.
So it was a success in that sense.
Definitely. And the director, Andrew McLaglen, said it really launched his career, put me in the big time, he said. He ended up directing 4 more movies with Wayne after that.
And critically, what did people like Bosley Crowther think back then?
Crowther, writing for the New York Times, thought it had a promising idea and praised the opulent scenery. But he felt McLaughlin's directing didn't quite hit the mark for the kind of lusty farce it was aiming for. He thought it could have been sharper, funnier.
Interesting. So mixed reviews, but a box office success, and this really complicated afterlife because of the copyright situation.
Exactly. And as Emanuele noted, it's significant beyond just the box office or the reviews. It marks that shift in Wayne using his films to express his own views more directly. It's this fascinating intersection of star power, creative intent, business, and the quirks of copyright law.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. What have we really unpacked in this deep dive on McLintock?
Well, we've seen it's not just a simple Western comedy. It's actually this really complex mix. John Wayne trying to shape his image and message, cackling themes like Native American representation and politics, all through this kind of broad Shakespeare-inspired slapstick, including those infamous spankings.
Right. And we've also tracked its really unusual path into the public domain, which is, a great example of its enduring appeal, but also a real case study in how film rights preservation and restoration work or sometimes don't work smoothly.
And understanding that public domain angle, especially the music rights issue, really helps you, the listener, make sense of why you might find 5 different versions of McLintock streaming and why one looks amazing and sounds right while another doesn't.
Yeah, it really highlights that whole behind-the-scenes world of art, money, and law that shapes how we even get to see these classic movies today. So maybe a final thought for you to consider. How does this kind of split public domain status where the film is free, but key parts like the music aren't here, how does that affect a movie's legacy? Does it help keep it alive through sheer availability, even in flawed versions? Or does it ultimately risk diluting the original artistic intent?
That's a great question. Are there other public gems you know of with similarly tangled histories? Might be something interesting to look into.
It's something to chew on. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the wild world of McLintock.
Hope we gave you a new perspective on this very unique classic and its unexpected journey through cinema history.